And it looks like we are live, as you guys all know by now. You got to give us just a second here to add in our Facebook groups because for some reason they just don't add by themselves, which is frustrating. But we have green check marks across all platforms. So, mile high hello, everybody in Broncos country. Welcome into another episode of the Dove Valley Deep Divers podcast. It's not just another episode of the Dove Valley Deep Divers podcast. Today is episode 150 of your beloved show. My name is Lance Sanderson. Joining me, as per always, is my good friend and colleague. He is Mile High Huddle's senior NFL draft analyst, the one and only Erick Trickel. Erick, dude, last week we did, 3 years? 3 years in a row we've been doing the show. Start of year 3 anyways. Today, episode 150. Like, this is crazy, dude, to think that where we came from doing the shows as recorded shows and you and our banter back and forth, we went to the live and stuff. We've been doing that for almost 2 years now. It's a wild journey, dude. And we talk trash with each other. We argue with each other back and forth in front of everybody. It's just great to be here and to celebrate another milestone for you and me here on DVDD, man. What's going on? How are you doing?
I'm doing good. The milestone I'm excited to do is when I eventually get a new co-host. As I said, there's about 50 other people I'd rather do this with, but hey, at least you're the 51st. So, but in all seriousness, it's been a great time. I mean, it's a lot of joking, poking fun at each other and everything like that, which in my opinion is what makes us so great.
Yeah.
But I mean, just getting to sit around, chat with football with you and hear some of your terrible takes, like how good of a job Mike Mayock and John Gruden are doing, and talking with everybody in the chat and just getting their takes and everything, and just expanding the community from what it's been way back when Chad and I first started up Mile High Huddle and how far it's grown. It's just awesome to see in episode 150 is just yet another milestone.
Yeah, I hate doing this every single Friday. It's the worst time of my week because I have to deal with you talking to me like I'm an idiot or something like that. My takes are fine, okay? They're fine. They're well thought out, and I bring at least something to this show, whether it's my silly antics or stupid stuff, whatever it may be. It's always fun, though. We always have a good time. We love everybody here in the chat. We've got a lot of people. Albert Knoppers in the house. Savage Boy Kev over on Twitch. He's got a question for us. We'll grab that here in a minute. Stu McPeak, Dylan Von Arx, obviously doing the stuff that he does behind the scenes. Paul Anna's neighbor. That's a new name for us. So Paul Anna's neighbor. Welcome into Dove Valley.
No, it's Paul and hashtag Boo Iowa is right.
Oh, okay. I'm just looking at names here. I haven't actually gotten into what people are saying. I saw a couple of them. We're going to grab a couple of questions from First No Fear here in just a few minutes. But before we get into the theme of today's show, which is breaking down, we're going to focus primarily on the first 4 weeks of this Broncos season, just because it's so hard to figure out what's going on, obviously, later down the year and whatnot like that. So we're going to focus on breaking down this Broncos schedule, giving a kind of a pseudo record projection and everything like that for the first 4, maybe 6 weeks of this Broncos seasons. But before we get into that, guys, we do have to give a big, massive thank you and a shout out to our presenting sponsor, MyBookie.com. Erick, what's up with MyBookie, dude?
So winning season has officially returned, and with the regular season just about here, there are plenty of opportunities to win at MyBookie. Whether you're a season bettor or first time, MyBookie gets you the most for your money with a double deposit bonus up to $1,000. It's simple. You follow the link in the show description, sign up using our promo code Wilson22 on your first deposit, and you'll instantly double your money with MyBookie. It's simple. A $250 deposit puts $500 into your account, and you can use your funds to bet on as many individual games, contests, or props that you want.
I love betting. I've been getting into betting, especially now that Wyoming has it legalized. But with MyBookie, you can pretty much do it anywhere you're at. They have really good odds, like the Broncos in the Seahawks game coming up here week 1. The Broncos are -6.5, so they're just not quite 7-point favorites as road favorites in their first game. The money line total right now -250 for the Broncos. Over under is 42 total points. So guys, go and get whatever bets you want to do. The prop bets are super fun. You can bet on player season totals. You can bet on pretty much anything, like his yardage totals, touchdown totals, over under wins for certain teams and stuff like that. Pretty much everything that you can think of in terms of betting at MyBookie. You can do everything with their prop builder to give yourself the edge that you need to secure a big winning and secure that bag. Again, guys, use code Wilson22 when you sign up. Get double your deposit. Follow the link in the show notes and click to join now. Bet anything, anytime, anywhere with my bookie. So, Eric, minus 6.5 for the Broncos. They're not quite a touchdown favorite. Stu McPeak jumping in here really fast with a super generous super chat here. Go Broncos. And thank you, Stu. Zeus, raining down from above. Thank you, Stu, for joining us. We really appreciate you, man. I'm curious about your bet here, Stu. What do you think the Broncos are going to do? I mean, the 7-point, that's a touchdown favorite on the road. Is that like feasible? Like, we're getting right into this. Like the Broncos at Seattle. Open up the schedule. We're not going to see the Drew Lock revenge game because that didn't need to happen to begin with. But Russell Wilson returning home for the first time. That place is going to be raucous. It's Monday Night Football. What do you think is going to happen here with the Broncos against the Seattle Seahawks?
Well, I think Denver's going to win. The minus 6.5 or whatever, I don't understand betting. I've never taken the time to learn, so that means absolutely nothing to me. But I think that this is a game that Denver could walk out with a win by more than 7 points. I mean, I look at the Seahawks defense, and while they do have talent, they are one of the worst rosters on paper this season. Defensively, there's not much there to work with. A lot of it is going to be how do they go from here. Boya Mafia was a nice pick. They have a nice safety in not Adams because he's a linebacker.
It's
the other guy,
Quandre
Diggs, yeah. Some decent corners, but I mean, there's just too much offensive firepower for the Broncos for them to really stop. The question will be how put together is the offense? How much chemistry do they have together? I think that could go against the Broncos offense more over the ability of the Seahawks defense. And offensively of the Seahawks, I'm not expecting much. They have two good weapons, but their quarterback position, no matter who was winning it, was going to be a problem. And it is a problem. Geno Smith, I mean, Broncos should be able to confuse them. The defense is playing lights out in practice. We should see that transfer over. Getting the starters out there on the field, like it should be a good defensive game. And I'm not expecting this one to be super close.
Yeah, I'm right there with you. I wrote some notes down. I went through the first 6, 7, 8 games, something like that, before we had to come on live. And the notes that I wrote down here, this is a blowout, guys. Like, quite honestly, this is Russell Wilson coming up back to Seattle to really put it back to this Seattle organization. He forced his way out. Like he was tired of dealing with Pete Carroll and the conservative offense. He wants to go sling the football around. Nathaniel Hackett comes in. They bring Russell Wilson in. They're trying to just build this offense the way that they wanted to. I have some questions. There are definitely some questions as concerned with the timing. We haven't seen it on the field yet in terms of live game action, but the offense in the joint practice against the Dallas Cowboys was dominant. Like they were moving the ball up and down the field at will. So to me, I think this is a big blowout. My bold prediction here is Russell Wilson just goes off in his return back to Seattle. 3 touchdown passes, a 4th on the ground. The Broncos win big, 42-10. Honestly, I think that this defense is going to get after Geno Smith. Like, I don't trust Abraham Lucas. I don't trust Charles Cross. You've got Bradley Chubb. I'm just curious to see how much Randy Gregory plays coming off the edge, but do we see Drew Lock play in this game in the 4th quarter? Like, that's probably the bigger question, because with a big blowout, why the hell not throw the young guy out there and just add some fuel to this fire?
I can't imagine Pete Carroll pulling the ripcord on Geno Smith without even a full game played. Like, I just don't see it. The issue with Drew Lock, and I mean, right after the game, it didn't take long for them to come out and say Geno Smith's our starter.
Right.
And Drew Lock in that final preseason game, he threw those interceptions. Like, Pete Carroll is very similar to what we had last year. He wants a strong running game. He wants a good defense, and he wants a quarterback that's not going to turn the ball over. Only way I could see it, Drew Lock getting out there, is if Geno Smith comes out and throws like 4 interceptions. Like, that's it. And even then, I don't think they would pull it during the game. I think they would wait, let him bounce back, or give Geno Smith another game or two, and then go from there.
Yeah, I'm gonna parlay this question here from Savage Boy Kev over there on Twitter. Besides right tackle, what are the biggest question marks on this team? Tight end, cornerback depth, and potentially off-ball linebacker. But those would be the ways that I would look at. But speaking of the right tackle position, Abraham Lucas, rookie out of Washington State this last year, going to be probably starting for the Seahawks at the right tackle position. Going to be seeing a lot of more than likely Randy Gregory coming off of that side, as Bradley Chubb typically comes from the left side. Baron Browning could be another way to look at that. I'm not saying that Geno is going to play so bad that they're not going to pull him for performance. I'm saying that Geno Smith is probably going to be injured by the end of this game. Like, let's be honest here. Lucas and Cross, 2 rookie tackles going against guys of the caliber of Bradley Chubb and Randy Gregory in this first contest. That's a mismatch, and the Broncos need to exploit that. So that's where I'm kind of deriving this question from.
Yeah, I just don't see it. I mean, injuries are hard. You can't predict them.
Right,
I think there's going to be plenty of hits on Geno Smith. Can he stay out there? Obviously, that's not something we can predict. It's possible. But, I mean, barring an injury, I don't think that they're making that switch.
Right.
Andrew comes and says, hello, wondering what your thoughts are about Uwazurike and how he looks and seeing him helping this year. He got better as the preseason went on. He didn't use his length very well against the Dallas Cowboys, which is one of his biggest attributes. He did a little bit better against the Bills, still was rough, and then he got even better against the Minnesota Vikings. I thought he would compete to be a starter job, but Deshaun Williams, I guess, has absolutely taken a tremendous step forward with his development in his play. We didn't get to see him much out there except for a few reps against the Buffalo Bills, where he did well. Everything else around him just struggled. We'll see how that continues. But he's the fourth or fifth or sixth guy on the rotation. I mean, we got the Joneses, we got Purcell, we got Williams. Those are your first 4. Those are going to be the guys mostly on it. Matt Henningson's going to be part of it. And not to mention Uwazurike, what he's doing for the Broncos is quite different from what he did at Iowa State with how he was used there. And it's on the defensive line, which typically takes 2 to 3 years of development of work before you finally get to where they're at. I think he'll contribute. I think he'll play this year. I just don't think it'll be often. I'll be surprised if he gets, barring an injury, of course, I'll be surprised if he sees more than 150 snaps on the season.
I'm pretty much right there with you. Another player that was waived and then brought back on the practice squad, McTelvin Ajim, is another player to kind of look out for, because you have the opportunity to bring up some players from your practice squad to the active game day roster. So with Uwazurike, the issues that he has in the running game, Ajim has those as well. So like there's definitely a conversation to be had there. But I think that Uwazurike in a rotational role is going to have at least some kind of an impact for this team. I really want to see him get after the quarterback from that interior defensive line spot, the 2-eye tech, the 3 tech potentially, really attacking those gaps using that first step penetration ability that he has. So I think that's pretty much where you're going to see Uwazurike step up and shine, and hopefully against this Seattle Seahawks interior offensive line in general that's not very good. Maybe Uwazurike is a player to kind of watch out for against the Seahawks in week 1. Ernie Mays jumping in here. Ernie, what's up, man? It's great to see you in the chat again. Hello, Lance and Eric, and go Broncos, as always. And thank you, Ernie, for joining us. Travis Weber jumping in here as well. Good evening, Lance, Eric, Scott, and Broncos country. Happy Friday and Labor Day weekend. Happy Labor Day to everybody out there as well. We do this. It's fun. It's not necessarily a job. It's more of a hobby. We try to do as much as we can to try to, bring as much Broncos content to you guys, but everybody else around the world does a great job in terms of your truckers, your electricians, your plumbers, people that are stocking shelves at the grocery stores. We appreciate every single one of you guys. And this weekend is for you. Like, it really is. Like, without the people in the workforce that are able to, help us live our lives in general, we wouldn't be here right now to begin with. So happy Labor Day to each and every person out in Broncos country and across the world. We definitely appreciate you guys. And on a side note here, really quick, Scott's not with us tonight. We got to give a big shout out to Scott Kennedy and his wonderful wife. I'm not sure her name, but they are celebrating 22 years of marriage, I believe tomorrow. So tonight they are out celebrating their anniversary and having dinner and everything like that. So Scott's not going to be with us tonight, but yes, special shout out to Scott and everybody. Michael Ronquillo jumping in. Good evening, Lance, Eric on the Dove Valley Deep Divers. Let's ride and go Broncos. Eric, anything you want to add really fast?
On what? I was reading through chat. So with Scott here, I'm trying to pull double duty and keeping track of the chat. And sometimes I can't always focus on what's being said. Uh,
You're good. Just giving shout outs to everybody and how much we appreciate everybody for joining us tonight.
Well, I mean, one thing I will say is I did hear you say that we don't do this as a job. It's more like a hobby. Well, for me, it's 100% part of my job.
Yeah.
But it doesn't feel like it. And I think that's the best thing is growing up, I was always told, find something you love to do. And I absolutely love doing this. I love putting in the work, putting in the time watching film, even though I complain about it often, even though I complain about my lack of sleep and all that stuff like that. I absolutely love it. I enjoy doing this. I enjoy sitting down here for a Friday night with everybody in the chat, and I tolerate doing it with you. But it's just it's always a good time. And Mike Ronquillo comes in and says, "Good evening, lads. Eric and Dove on the Dove Valley Divers. Let's ride and go Broncos." Definitely for sure. And Michael followed that up with a question real quick. What are your thoughts on Russell Wilson's 5-year contract? First of all, a quick little I told you so. I told you so that his contract would be done before the season. A few weeks ago, we had that debate, and you kept saying that you think that they'll wait till after the season, but before the Justin Herbert, Joe Burrow contracts come in. And I was telling you, I'm pretty sure it'll be done by the season, at the very latest by mid-season.
I'm fairly certain that I said that it would probably be done mid-season around the November-December area, not after the season.
Because I was always thinking, because I countered back because you said after the season, and I made it back that it had to happen before Justin Herbert, before Joe Burrow.
Right.
But anyways, that's beside the point. I was right. You were wrong, as usual. As for the actual thoughts on the contract, I think it's a good deal. We're looking at a salary cap that here shortly is going to be $300+ million. The percentage of that Russell Wilson is against the cap is in that range that you typically want for the quarterback. It's a team-friendly deal because of how it's structured and when Denver could potentially get out of it, just in case Russell Wilson falls off a cliff and isn't the player that he was. Possibility, not saying it's likely, but they have that way out of it. It protects them. It's just a really good, fair deal. And I absolutely loved a lot of the reactions from Seattle fans and Seattle reporters with, oh, it's a good thing he went to Denver because he was never getting that type of deal. And it's like they're trying to use that as an own on against Denver and Russell Wilson. But to me, it's just an own of the Seattle Seahawks and how cheap of a team they are. If they weren't willing to do a team-friendly deal like that, how cheap of a management do you have to be?
I'm right there with you, man. And it has, obviously, it's a lot of guaranteed money. $165 million. It's just crazy. And sorry, I got a dog barking in the background. But that's a lot of guaranteed money. And it's like the Broncos are fortunate now. They've got the Walton Penner group that owns the team, and they have the ability to write a $50 million check today, essentially, to give to Russell Wilson as a signing bonus. Like, they have the cash that they can actually do some really creative things, like what the Kansas City Chiefs do, like what the New Orleans Saints do, where they give a lot of signing bonuses, push that salary cap hit down the road a little ways, and then they can figure it out on the backside after the fact is already done. This contract, the cash flow for Russell Wilson, he's going to get what, $57 million this season, and then he gets a $20 million option bonus on the 5th day of the league year next year. He's going to make essentially 88, almost $90 million in the next 8 months. But his cap hits are $15 million and $17 million and $24 million over the course of these first 2 seasons. They dropped from what they were before. Then the third year, the actual first year of this extension is only $36 million. So the Broncos are not only getting a top 10 level quarterback at a premium contract, but they also get it at a discounted cap hit because the salary cap is going to jump to like $300 million by the time that this contract actually hits water. And they still have flexibility to move on from that if they want to move money around. This contract is absolutely spectacular. This is great cap management. It's a discounted price. You get a great player for it, and you have the flexibility to add to this team and really build a Super Bowl contender for the long haul. The effective cap space of this hits in like the first 4 years. Everything after that, that's all funny money. It doesn't matter. This is a wonderful, wonderful contract for Russell Wilson and for the Broncos.
Albert comes in 150, saying 150 stars for 150 episodes, DB for L. And Albert, we both want to give you a quick shout out.
Yes.
The mailboxes, we are both super excited about it. We were talking about it before the show. I can't wait for it to get here. As soon as we get it, the following episode that I will be showing it, I am hoping, because the day that it's supposed to arrive, that it'll be here in time for the show in 2 weeks. But it may have to be the week after that, depending on what time it actually arrives. But we are both super excited for it. We can't thank you enough for it and taking the time to make something so awesome for us. We both were extremely jealous of Chad and Zach last year when they got there. So thank you, Albert, for that.
Yeah, thanks, Albert, man. So mine's supposed to be here probably next Tuesday or Wednesday, so I'll have that, and that'll be one of the first things we do is at least show mine off. I might wait until Eric gets his, but they will both be on the screen to show everybody your handiwork. And again, we just appreciate you for everything, all your support, and this is such an amazing gift from you. And again, man, thank you so much.
Real quick, I want to grab this. I want to grab this comment here. So Divine Comedy says Seahawks being underrated wildly by Denver fans. Gonna be a tough game. Okay, Divine Comedy, if you're still in the chat, tell me how are Denver fans? How are we underrating the Seahawks? How are we wildly rating them? I'm just curious to hear your take about it. Because I say this all the time. Any given Sunday, for all we know, Seattle can come out and just blow out the Broncos. Why are we so underrated wildly underrating them in your opinion? And while you type that in, if you're still in there, we have Michael Ronquillo saying, congratulations on 150 Dove Valley Deep Divers podcast. Thanks for your time and honor to be part of the Dove Valley Deep Divers podcast. Listener, let's ride and go Broncos. Michael, you're one of the best supporters that we have on here. I mean, everybody who supports is great, but you're so consistent with it and everything. And we absolutely are super appreciative of it. It's safe to say that for sure, without all of your guys' support, we wouldn't have made it to 150, and we're super excited for the next 150, 500, however many it is. I don't know how much longer I can take doing it with this guy, but we'll get there when we get there.
Man. Why do you have to keep throwing the shots? I don't appreciate this. Cody W., maybe you got something positive to say for me. Do you see them working out Blake Martinez, linebacker, formerly of the Green Bay Packers, and I believe he was with the Giants this last season? I don't think that's in the cards. Quite honestly, I think they're kind of waiting around for Jonas Griffith to come back. It sounds like he's going to be available, if not for week 1, for week 2. So
expectation is for him to be back week 1.
Okay, so even if he comes back week 1 and he's not playing like the full starters rotations and stuff, full starter snap in the rotation and stuff like that, I think that Blake Martinez would be a nice addition to bolster over Justin Strnad. But I don't think that the Broncos are going to be willing to go out and do something like that. Eric, I see you're working on something behind the scenes. Is this Blake Martinez related, or you got something else going on here?
Yeah, Blake Martinez was in 2020. He had a very underrated season.
Yes.
Last year he had started off strong, but like Josie Jewell, he was down with it. He went out with a knee injury. He only played in 3 games. He was making a lot of money. They parted ways for him. I wouldn't mind Denver looking his way on 2 conditions. One, that it's not the most expensive contract, which I think he can get decent money out there still, even though he's coming back from that knee injury. And 2, he's willing to come in and compete as a linebacker 4 and potentially linebacker 3. I wouldn't be looking his way to come in and be a starter because I think Josie Jewell has enough of the leadership and the respect to stay out there on the start. Plus, plus Blake Martinez and Josie Jewell are quite familiar with their play style. And that's why I wouldn't want him over Griffith. If Griffith struggles, though, turning to Blake Martinez, having somebody that's an upgrade over Alex Singleton, over Justin Strnad isn't a bad idea, which is why I'm fine for a depth spot. I'm not sure that's what he'll look for. I don't see Denver being on it. I do wish they did something or will still do something. Who knows? Maybe after week 1, they go bring in a veteran because of contracts. Veteran contracts after week 1 aren't guaranteed because Justin Strnad shouldn't be on the roster. He showed that in the preseason. Like he looked the same exact way he did against the Cleveland Browns last year. And that's not a good sign when he's seeing his action against second and third stringers.
I'm with you on that. And you might call me crazy. Here's a hot take for you. I would rather the Broncos go back and get like a J.R. Reed to come back rather than go and get another linebacker with that stack linebacker ability like him because he's not great in pass coverage. I would rather go get a guy that can fly around at the second level of the defense, be good in the run fit and play in that aspect and go more the dime backer look. You got guys like Kareem Jackson. You've got the Caden Stearns. You've got De'Aaron Turner-Yell on the roster already. You got bring in another guy like a J.R. Reed rather than a guy like Blake Martinez who has to adapt to the scheme, understand what's going on in front of him, and also be able to play in coverage. bring me J.R. Reed rather than Blake Martinez, save a little bit of money and go in that direction. Eric, actually, before I go there, Gary Lees Palmer jumping in again. And Gary's a great friend of ours on Facebook. He does a wonderful job supporting every single show. Says, hi, Lance, Eric, and Scott. Other than offensive tackle, is there any other position we need to address? Let's write. Well, let's talk about this linebacker position. Is it going to be a free agent linebacker that we've already tried to see that route in Joe Schobert, who was a massive flop from what everything we saw? Do they go get Blake Martinez, or is my idea of bringing back a J.R. Reed one that's completely convoluted and not based in any sense of reality?
I don't think Blake Martinez is the answer. I don't think J.R. Reed is the answer. I don't either. I think they like J.R. Reed on the practice squad and then developing him, because the way he played in the preseason, it was quite reminiscent of the way Kareem Jackson plays. And I fully expect Kareem Jackson to either hang it up after the season or at least be done in Denver after the season.
Mm-hmm.
And then turning to the young guys. Caden Stern should be able to step up, or PJ Locke, one of those two should be able to step up into starter position. Then you have Delaire Turner-Yell, hopefully taking that next step, J.R. Reed. So they have options for their safety position beyond this year. So I don't see that being the way they go. I could see them going a different veteran route. But it could also be a case that they, for some reason, are fine with Justin Chenette. Obviously, there's a lot of information that we aren't privy to. We have no idea how they're doing, what their evaluation is of him on special teams. They have no idea what his evaluation of him is in their meeting room. So he could just be a really bright football player that does have some athletic gifts that they just want to try to put all the tools together. That could very much be the case. But the NFL, not for long. It's very much a what have you done for me lately kind of league. He hasn't done a lot. So as a fan and an outside analyst, it's easy for us to sit here and say they need to upgrade linebacker position, because from what we see, they do. Who knows who it'll be, though?
Yeah, that's an interesting conversation, to be honest. Like the inside linebacker position with the injury to Jonas Griffith, the depth behind them is not necessarily the highest quality. So that's definitely one of the first places you need to look. I think tight end is another way that the Broncos need to look, with Greg Dulcich on short-term IR to start the season. Albert O, we're just not sure there. Eric Tomlinson looked okay in the preseason action he got catching the football. I was very impressed with him catching the football. I did not think he was going to be able to do that. And Eric Saubert is a guy that has a rapport with Russell Wilson. So it's an interesting conversation there. But I think that going and trying to find another tight end that is multiple, a quality blocker, a guy that can get out in pass routes and stuff like that would be a really good way to go. And then the cornerback position, they brought in Darius Phillips, waiting on Michael Ojemudia to come back. They could probably add another body there, but pretty much that's where I think that they should go in terms of bringing people outside to help bolster the depth of this roster. Paul jumping in here saying guilted lover syndrome, Eric, hashtag boo Hawkeyes. And
showing this just for the Boo Hawkeyes, like 100%.
I usually say this for Nebraska, but I'll do it for Iowa as well. The reason that the wind, because they're at least east of us, the reason that the wind blows from west to east is because Iowa sucks. Okay, let's be honest. I live in Wyoming here. The reason the wind blows west to east is because Iowa sucks. Garth and I jumping in here really fast. Super chat. Thank you, Garth. We appreciate you, man. The Seahawks fans are as salty as an old sea captain with a peg leg. If they think Russ sucks so bad, why the animosity? Can we say that locked arrangement? Can we say that locked arrangement syndrome travels?
No, it's 100% copium. They're trying to cope with how bad their team is, and to deal with that, they got to crap on Russell Wilson and where he went to now, which is weird. Like, it's always been weird to me. Like, hey, move on. The players and the team don't need to hate. But I mean, what can you take when you see the Seahawks coaching staff and front office when they come out and talk to media and they just completely trash on the type of person Russell Wilson is? Like, they're just picking up from what it is. It's whatever. If they beat Denver come week 1, hey, more power to them. It'll definitely suck as a Broncos fan watching them lose. I just don't expect that to happen. I look at that roster. It's not very good. They have some good pieces, but it's again, 90% of games, 95% of games comes down to who has the better quarterback. And they could sit here and talk crap about Russell Wilson all they want, but he's better than both their quarterbacks combined.
Yeah. That's very true. The only way that it would really suck like terribly would be if Drew Lock was the starter and he ended up beating the Broncos. Like that would be insufferable as a Broncos fan. It really would, and especially as a person as critical as I am of Drew Lock. Thank you, Garth.
And then,
appreciate it. Oh, go ahead.
Real quick, just want to get this before we get to the schedule. Like we still have to talk about we have week 2 and 3, 2, 3, and 4 to go to. Steve Smith, did Bassey get claimed? He did not, and he actually just signed back today with the Broncos practice squad.
I'm glad that you grabbed that because I wasn't sure. I was about to say I haven't seen anything. I
just
for a living. Okay, so you just gotcha.
Zach Stevens 4 minutes ago, the Broncos signed Essang Bassey back to the practice squad.
Good. Not saying that he was a guy that was like a priority for me. We all know my Michael Ojemudia takes that were probably not founded in reality, but it was at least a good talking point. Essang Bassey was a big reason as to why that I thought that, because he can play the slot. Ojemudia hasn't shown to be able to do so.
No, if you play the slot, you have to be able to cover a cross, and he can't.
Yeah, and
Bassey can't play, period. He is, I will say this, he did a really good job throughout the preseason on special teams. And so I'm fine with him being back on the practice squad in case they need to call him up for some special teams help.
Yeah.
Hopefully he never sees the field on defense, though.
Yeah, he was really bad against the Bills.
Crossers
for days. And hopefully the Seahawks don't run a lot of crossers and gash the Broncos defense. And we can go into week 2, by the way, against the Houston Texans. First game at home. Do we really need to talk about this game? Like, let's be honest here. The Texans, I'm not sold that they're going to be anything outside of a top 5 pick in this next year's draft. That roster is upgraded, but not great. Their quarterback position with Davis Mills is not really all that great. Denver could potentially take advantage of a bad defense from everything you look at on paper. And this should be Broncos win. First game at home, Russell Wilson. The crowd's going to be raucous. The environment's going to be wild. This is a pretty easy game to me for the Broncos. They should start 2-0 here. What do you think?
The Texans. The Texans are, again, they're one of the worst rosters in the NFL. They've got some good pieces, but they're still a team that is very much trying to put it together. And it's kind of like the Seattle Seahawks, which we'll come back to because we did get a response from Divine Comedy. I do want to come back to that, Divine. Thank you for the response about it. It's always great to have some conversation going on with fans from other teams.
Yes,
but the Houston Texans, like, that roster is a mess. They're still trying to find an identity. They're still trying to figure out who they are. So I don't think we need to talk much about it. I think it would be any given Sunday. So I think it would be a tremendous upset if they did manage to come out with a win, but I wouldn't be expecting it.
Yeah, I just can't live in that fantasy land. Like, I'd have to tie 3/4 of my brain behind my back just to think of a way that the Broncos don't win that game at home. Like, it's the home opener. We all know what Mile High Stadium looks like in the home openers, especially early in the season. We're going to get another game here the week after that, which everyone's going to be at for the Mile High Huddle meet and greet, hopefully. But Denver doesn't lose at home to bad teams. That's how it is. They just don't, unless it's the Raiders for some stupid freaking reason we can't actually explain. But I don't foresee this game going any closer than like 24-10. Denver just kind of takes it easy. They get ready for San Francisco the following week. Quick question here from Cody W. before we jump into the Divine question as well. Cody jumping in with a super chat. With all the new special teams guys, that should mean that Josie Jewell won't be out on the field for specials, right? That's how he was hurt last year. And this is an astute observation, because Josie Jewell was hurt in week 2 against the Jacksonville Jaguars, playing special teams on a punt return where he tore his pectoral muscle. Eric, this is kind of an interesting
90% of NFL teams play their starting linebackers on special teams.
Thank you. I was going to go in that direction. And I'm not saying that necessarily it's even just starting linebackers. You might see a third cornerback who, like your slot cornerback, or maybe the backup boundary cornerback. Those are players that see the field a lot. You're seeing tight ends play on special teams. You're seeing linebackers play on special teams, potentially edge defenders playing on special teams. wide receivers, like guys that are going to have a massive impact. Guys like a Jalen Virgil, for instance, who made the Broncos roster this last week. He's going to be a quality special teams player, or at least he should be a quality special teams player, because that's what your backup wide receivers do. Starting linebackers, starting cornerbacks, guys like that are going to play on special teams. Now, Josie may not be that guy because the Broncos did go out and get an Alex Singleton this season, who was a quality special teams player, but Josie Jewell could see some time on special teams, and it sucks that he got hurt doing that, but let's be honest, he's going to play. He's going to play on the field. Like, he's going to be there.
Well, last year, I mean, we thought they would use their depth on linebacker. They'd use them on special teams. They still use their starters on special teams. They brought in Jonas Griffith last year for a special teams role, and Josie Jewell was still out there on special teams. Starters at linebacker position just typically play certain special teams units, and punt coverage and punt returns are typically two of them. Mm-hmm. It's the way it is in the NFL. It's the way it always has been. When you only have 48 active players out there, like you kind of got to double up at some places, because you can't have your backup offensive lineman. You don't typically use your backup quarterback on there. And certain positions, you don't use your depth guys, your 2s, your 3s on special teams. So there's a lot of doubling up out there. You're not going to see your starting edges, but we'll probably see Baron Browning out there on special teams as well. It's just how it is in the NFL. It's how it always has been, and it'll probably be how it always remains, unless they get to a point where they expand the number of players you have on your game day roster, or on your roster, and then how many you have on your active game day roster. Until that happens, we'll probably still see it.
Yeah, and unfortunately, with that, when they do expand those rosters, when they do, let's say they go to a 60-man active game day roster, which with the way the players want to protect their health, and with the way that league's trying to transition to, that might not be a crazy thing to see in the next 5 seasons, where they go to a 60-person active game day roster. Your practice squad's 15 guys on top of that, so 85 player rosters, like what you see in college football. That's not outside of the realm of possibility. When that does happen, and you're bringing 60 guys and you're not playing your starters on special teams across the league is going to fall off. Like, plain and simple, you're going to see a lot more busted coverages. You're going to see a lot bigger returns. You're going to see a lot of mistakes that can flip the tides of games. Like, let's be honest here. A punt return for a touchdown, and then a defensive stop plus another offensive possession that turns into a touchdown, like, changes the entire tide of a game. Special teams is one of those thirds that you have to have quality players. And if you don't have quality players that are out there capable of playing in those roles, you're going to see a lesser product on the field. And it's going to make for games that turn into wild and crazy kids, essentially.
Yeah. Before we get to week 3, let's go back. I want to address Divine Comedy. He says Seattle's defense was top 12 in points last year and got better. That's point 1. The running backs are being undersold. Penny was going at over 6 yards per carry last year. Point 2, they know Russ better than anyone. Okay. Carroll is no fool, and his teams play hard. All right. So point 1, Seattle defense was top 12 in points last year. Yes, they were. And got better. No, they didn't. They lost Carlos Dunlap, who was their best pass rusher. They lost their best linebacker with Bobby Wagner. Cody Barton's expected to step in as a starter, and he really struggled this preseason, to where a lot of people who cover the Seahawks thought that he should be benched for it. You also have Jordan Brooks starting next to him, who also is struggling quite a bit as a linebacker. He hasn't really developed that way, but he's had some bright moments. Maybe he can develop. Their cornerbacks are still really bad. Sidney Jones is all right when he's out there on the field. Their other one is Artie Burns, I believe, who, I mean, Burned Burns, like, he has that nickname. Their defense got worse. They didn't add where they need to. Uchenna Nwosu is a major step down from their edges that last year as a starter. Boya Mafi is a good piece added. Shelby Harris isn't bad. Shelby Harris has his weaknesses, because trust me, Bronco fans, hey, you said that the Seahawks know Russell Wilson better than anyone. Bronco fans really know Shelby Harris. We know his weaknesses. We know how to block him. And so did the Broncos offensive linemen that went against him so often. So the defense didn't get better. They got worse. They have potential to be better a year from now if they continue to add more pieces on it. Not to mention, you just paid Jamal Adams, who is one of the worst safeties in the NFL, because he's a one-trick pony that can't get interceptions. So he's not much of a threat. Quandre Diggs is coming back from severe injury. What is he going to be? The running backs are being old. Let me run through this real quick. Let me rant, and then, because I've got all points on all this. Penny was going at over six yards per carry. He had 6.3, but you know what happened with him last year? Okay, 137 yards against the Houston Texans, 135 yards against the Chicago Bears, 170 yards against the Detroit Lions, and 190 yards against the Arizona Cardinals. All four were some of the worst defenses last year. Arizona Cardinals were somewhat decent. They were a little bit higher than the Arizona Cardinals in points allowed, but if I remember correctly, Arizona and Seattle were both much worse in DVOA, which is one of the best stats it comes to when it's talking about defensive play in general. Total yards, passing yards, rushing yards, points per game is decent, not the best. So that's an issue with them. The Detroit Lions were literally the second worst team. When Rashad Penny was the starting running back against the only good caliber defense that they played, the Los Angeles Rams, he picked up 39 yards on 11 attempts. That's not great. That's a 3.5 rushing average, which is slightly better than the 3.3 minimum that you want from your running backs. Now, they know Russ better than anyone. You have a point there. They know Russ better than anyone. But you also know what? Russ also knows them. He knows that defense. They're not changing that defense up drastically. They're not changing that offense up drastically. Pete Carroll is a very standard offense guy. There's a reason why for his Russell Wilson's whole career, they ran the ball on first and second downs over 80% of the time. Russell Wilson knows that. It's very easy to go back, watch a tape, and look at that. It was one of the issues Russell Wilson had with Pete Carroll. Pete Carroll is no fool. He pissed off his starting franchise quarterback because he refused to change up his style of offense. That is kind of foolish there. I mean, they had one of the best quarterbacks in the NFL for so many years, and they're just going to piss him off because Pete Carroll is too damn stubborn to change up what he wants to do offensively. And his teams play hard. That's great. The Detroit Lions played hard last year for Dan Campbell. How many games did they win? Playing hard doesn't always translate to wins. Thank you.
There's so many things that I want to add on top of that, but I think you pretty much covered it. The one thing I will say is the running backs are being overrated. Yeah, who's going to block for them? And also, when
I will say this, I will give him credit.
Let me finish this. Let me finish this really fast. So when Rashad Penny was going off, you know who was playing at a freaking high level at that particular point because he was coming back off of an injury and was throwing the football all over the yard? Russell freaking Wilson, man. Teams had to respect the fact that that Russell Wilson had the ability to throw the football and run the football, and he was opening up so much more for Rashad Penny. Like, this is crazy talk here. Chris Carson, out. He's gone, okay? Kenneth Walker is coming off of a surgery. He had surgery in this offseason, and you're relying on Rashad Penny as the answer here? No, man. No. I'm all the way out on this take. In fact, it is a divine comedy that's what you're going to bring to our show.
Let's not make fun of the name now.
I'm kidding.
We appreciate you jumping in and doing the comment. It's a back and forth. We disagree, and it's not because we're Bronco fans and we expect them to win. It's looking at the team. I mean, part of my job with My Huddle is I go and I do break down all the other teams. I watch a lot of them. I watched a lot of the games last year when Russell Wilson was traded, and I've been doing that over the last week. I will give credit where credit is due. The Seahawks, we can talk about Charles Cross. We can talk about Abraham Lucas. Both of them had really good preseasons. They even went up against some decent pass rushers and still did extremely well. Their tackles shouldn't be a liability like they were last year for the most part. Their interior offensive line is still a major concern for me. I don't see much improvement done in that area of it. So it's Gabe Jackson is fine. Damian Lewis, Austin Blythe, they are what they are. So they did improve their offensive line, which is needed, but the Broncos tremendously improved their pass rush, their internal pass rush, which is going to attack those interior offensive lines. And then going back to Rashad Penny, when you're talking about it, one thing too with Rashad Penny, you know how many career rushing attempts he has?
Less than 200.
No, he's got more. 306.
Okay.
He has 306 rushing attempts in 4 years. Up until this year, he had 173, I think is what it was. Up until this year in 3 years. This year was the first year that he really got the ball because of so many injuries. And it just kind of like clicked. The Seahawks, if they really believed in what Rashad Penny could do, they probably wouldn't have selected Kenneth Walker. Not that early anyways. They wouldn't have taken a running back that early. They brought in Kenneth Walker to go and, provide that emergency thing. Cody W says Pete is another Vic. He very much is.
Yes.
His philosophy is strong defense, strong running game, quarterback who doesn't turn the ball over, and that's one of the reasons why Geno Smith won the job. And then William Catalano says Pete isn't quite that bad. I'm not trying to make it out like Pete Carroll is a terrible coach. He's just a very stubborn coach with an old, outdated philosophy that just doesn't work all that well in modern NFL. And that's why for the last few years, his teams have struggled. They've really been carried by what Russell Wilson can do, because what he is able to do, what Russell Wilson can do, helps open up the run game, which was helping them run Pete Carroll's offense. It still was an issue that over 80% of the time, they were still running on first and second down.
Yeah.
Now week 3 real quick. We're going to be there at week 3, so that means that the San Francisco 49ers are going to lose, because the Denver Broncos and games I have attendance are a perfect 100.
I got to give a quick shout out to Garth, because Garth jumped in here. I'm not going to flash it on the screen or read it, but Garth came in with another super chat, and Garth, thank you for that. I appreciate the feedback on that one. But yeah, we're going to leave that conversation go. San Francisco is actually a game that I'm not sure about. That's a good team. That's a good defense. It's a good defensive line. It's a team that's kind of familiar with what Russell Wilson wants to do. Now, granted, it is a new offense that we have never seen before, obviously, for the most part anyways. But they also have a young quarterback in Trey Lance. And again, identifying what's going on with this defense. That's going to be multiple fronts. They're going to bring multiple different pressures. They're going to play multiple different coverages. I'm not sure that the Broncos are going to walk away with the win against the 49ers.
They will, because I will be in attendance.
I love it. Love the confidence here. The one thing, this is the one question I do have about this team, like the one legitimate question I do have about this team. I said it last week on DVDD. I'm going to say it again. This run defense scares me. Granted, there was a lot of backups playing this season. We didn't see DJ Jones. We didn't see Draymond Jones. Didn't see Mike Purcell. Didn't really see Deshaun Williams. We saw him a little bit. But teams were running all over the Broncos, aside of the Minnesota Vikings, and they still had some success on the ground. I don't know if it's the players up front or if it's the scheme itself, because there's a lot of new players, especially with backups and stuff like that don't understand their run fits. They don't understand what they need to do. There's not the high quality players that you're going to see as your starters. Plain and simple. I don't know. And Kyle Shanahan runs one of the most sophisticated and well-taught running schemes this league sees. Quite honestly, they do a tremendous job up front, teaching that outside zone. This game has me a little bit nervous, and I'm not going to lie about that, because the running game with the Shanahan offense, with what we saw with this Broncos defense, I can see the 49ers grinding out some yards in the running game and taking control of this game, even with Trey Lance, who is young and doesn't know what he's doing, because they don't want to put the football in his hands. Are those valid concerns, or am I crazy here?
I think the run defense concerns are somewhat valid, but the issue that I have with that is no Mike Purcell, no Draymond Jones,
right,
no DJ Jones,
yep,
hardly any Deshaun Williams.
Yep.
McTelvin Najim, well-documented issues against the run. Jonathan Harris, well-documented issues against the run. And guess what? No Josie Jewell, no Jonas Griffith. Alex Singleton, he was meh against the run. Justin Chenard, well-documented being poor against the run. So there, you can't have questions about the scheme, but I mean, there is 100% evidence there that the biggest issue was who was out there on the field.
Right.
No Bradley Chubb. He's a very strong run defender. Baron Browning did an all right job. But then you have Malik Reed, who, again, well-documented issues against the run. Nick Benito, documented issues against the run. So there's a lot there. Kareem Jackson, very good coming downhill. Caden Stearns was hit or miss. PJ Locke was hit or miss. Justin Simmons is pretty good coming downhill against the run. The corners even. Patrick Surtain, despite some issues there with physicality, he did well again on the edge against the run. Quan Williams is one of the best nickel corners against the run. And Ronald Darby does pretty good against the run. Michael Ojemudia, meh. Damari Mathis, he was all right. Asang Basi, not so good. So there is a lot to believe that was a part of the personnel, but that doesn't change the fact that, yes, the San Francisco running game is legit. It is a legit concern, even with the starters out there, because we haven't seen it. We should have more by the time it's there. And then on the counter side, it's a similar concern with the rushing offense.
Mm-hmm.
Outside the Minnesota game, to start with Mike Boone, there was a lot of issues getting the running game going. And after Mike Boone was pulled out, there were still issues with the running game going. Getting the starters out there, getting Javonte Williams, giving Melvin Gordon should help. But they are going against one of the better, if not top 5 defensive fronts in the NFL. The San Francisco 49ers defensive line coach is probably the best defensive line coach in the NFL. He is so good at his job. He does such a good job of teaching the technique and making it easy to comprehend and execute. He's got some amazing drills that are just absolutely awesome to watch and learn from, and why they teach what they teach. I know there was a video going around about Cle'Veon Chasen in the stand and everything, moving his hands. So that is a drill that is from Ohio State's Larry Johnson, his defensive line coach. But that is one of the San Francisco 49ers defensive line and edge coaches they run as well. It's all it is about is with a soft setting for your footwork, so you have to be clean with your footwork, is chaining moves together, doing different pass rush moves quickly, chaining them together. And I absolutely love that. And the fact that they do that, I mean, Drake Jackson, he showed a lot of improvement quickly as an edge rusher. I mean, they consistently put out good defensive linemen. So it's going to be a tough game. It really will come down to what will Trey Lance be, though, because, again, quarterback is such a big thing for it. What is that going to be for that situation?
Yeah, Cody jumping in here again. And thank you, Cody. Man, you're just all over the place tonight. We really appreciate you, man. He says, if you can get on the scoreboard first and make the 49ers throw, you have a big chance. I have no doubt in our backfield holding it down. I'm with you on this, and Eric just kind of touched on that. The biggest question is, what does Trey Lance look like? Like, this defense is multiple. Like I said, they're bringing a lot of different creative pressures. They're running a lot of stunts up front, bringing creative blitzes, being multiple in their coverage. They're running a lot of cover 2 high with man underneath. They're running some quarters coverage. They're even rotating down and doing some single high cover 3 looks. Like this defense is being very creative up front. And you got a guy in Trey Lance that really needed to develop, understand what he's seeing out in front of him, diagnose that, and then make the play. And he's been pretty hit or miss as a young quarterback. So I'm with you on this one. If you make Trey Lance have to throw the football, that really is the biggest way that the Broncos can then overcome a tough defense with the guy Javon Kinlaw. We've got Fred Warner. You've got a lot of quality defensive players on the San Francisco defense. Nick Bosa is another guy, obviously. So like that's the big concern, because Seattle's defense is bad. Houston's defense is bad. This is the first real true test for this Broncos offense against the San Francisco 49ers in week 3. And again, this is Sunday Night Football, I believe, at home. So going to be a really fun game to kind of take a look at. And I cannot wait to break that down even further.
All right. Divine Comedy says, okay, let's watch the game. If it isn't a Broncos blowout, my man Lance here can man up and admit he was the divine clown. All right. If in 2 weeks, after the game is over, if the Broncos don't blow them out, feel free to come in. If as Broncos win, we're still right here in our analysis and our takes and everything like that. But so if Seattle loses, if it's a blowout, you can't be afraid to step in here either. So it's on you, man. So whatever happens 2 weeks from now, we want to see you back in chat.
So Divine, I want your thoughts on this. On what do you consider a blowout? Blowouts typically are double-digit wins, 10 points. The Broncos are going to win by 10 points. I'm going to put that out there right now. The Broncos are going to win by at least 10 points. The spread is -6.5 for the Broncos. That means that they are going to win, according to Vegas, according to the odds makers, by at least 6.5 points. So a touchdown, essentially, is where we have to draw the line. I'm saying by 10. If the Broncos don't win by 10, I will admit that you were right. I was wrong. And I'll do it on these airwaves in front of everybody else.
And I will laugh at him.
Because
I will always laugh at Lance being wrong.
Yeah, and he's going to laugh at me, and we're all going to have some good fun. But, Divine, if it is a 10-point blowout, I want you to come in here and say that you were wrong and that I was right. If we're going to have this bet, let's have a bet. We have to do it live on these airwaves, though, and it's going to be the Friday after the game. Friday at 6 p.m. We'll be here, and I'm going to write this down right now. I have a Seahawks bet against Divine, and 10-plus points is the mark.
All right. So while we're on this, because we got to get out of here because we have a hard time limit for tonight. We wanted to get through 4 games. We're going to be able to get to 3 tonight. And right now we have the Broncos going 3-0. Seattle shouldn't be too difficult on paper. Texans shouldn't be too difficult on paper, and they'll beat the 49ers because I'll be at the game. Seahawks game prediction. Score prediction. What is it?
42-10. It's a blowout.
So he's going big. So there you go, Divine Comedy. Write that down. 42-10.
42-10.
That's what Sean's going with. Go ahead. Write down. If it's not 42-10, even if the Broncos win and it's not close, feel free to come in and rub it in Lance's face that it wasn't 42-10. I'll support you on that.
Easy there, killer. If it's 35-10, it still counts, okay? That's a blowout.
No, it wasn't 42-10. If it's not perfect, you're gonna have jokes at your expense, Lance.
All right. So what's yours then? If we're being honest, what's your final score?
The Broncos with more points than the Seahawks.
Oh, that's a cop out. You called me on a cop out for the Twitter Spaces the other day. If you guys get the opportunity, go check that out. You called it a cop out. Let's go.
I'll say 31-16.
That's still a blowout.
I never said it wasn't going to be a blowout. Not once.
So Divine, we're having fun here. By the way, you're always more than welcome. Come in here and talk your mess. Let's have some good conversations back and forth. I expect you to be back here. Not this next Friday, the Friday after. Let's run it back and forth and let's have some fun with everybody. But with that, guys, we do have to get going. I have some stuff going on tonight that I have to get attending to. We got one last one here. Garth Knight jumping back in again. Says, before Russell Wilson was a Seahawk, so fans like me used to worry about the 10 a.m. games on the East Coast for the Broncos. Turns out all we needed was a good quarterback. Russ was that quarterback. I agree with you on that. We also had a super sticker here from Mr. Grape. So thank you, Mr. Grape. We can't show that on the screen because we don't have a producer behind the scenes to be able to pull that. But thank you, Mr. Grape, for jumping in and joining us. Guys, I'm going to run us down through some matters of business. We'll kind of wrap this one up. We went through the first 3 games. We're supposed to get through the first 4, but it doesn't really matter because the Broncos are going to blow the freaking Raiders out too, okay? I'm fully aboard the hype train with the Broncos offense this season. They're going to drop 50 on the Raiders because F the Raiders.
Well, they don't.
Yes.
Broncos don't have Drew Lock to throw 17 interceptions to the Raiders in a game.
And that secondary with the Raiders is absolutely atrocious.
I'm kidding with the Drew Lock comment.
No, it's the truth.
No, okay, if we're going to talk about Drew Lock's terrible game against the Raiders, Teddy Bridgewater had a terrible game against the Raiders last year too. It was just in humor, just a good fun. Drew Lock's gone. Doesn't mean I'm not going to poke at him because I know there's some loyal fans in the chat. And it's more so just to get you guys going because we love you and we appreciate you.
We do appreciate everybody for joining us here on the Dove Valley Deep Divers podcast. Make sure you guys are following us on Twitter. Please come back into the discussion. Divine, if you're out there, please follow me at Sanderson MHH. For Eric, at Erick Trickel. Also, guys, while you're at it, please make sure you guys are following at Mile High Huddle. That's some other account where you guys find breaking news and analysis on your Denver Broncos, including film breakdowns, opinion articles, literally breaking news, anything regarding the Broncos. You're going to find it at Mile High Huddle. Folks, if you're financially able to do so, super chats and stars donations on YouTube and Facebook respectively are greatly appreciated. But another great way to help support the show, huddleuppod.com. That's a merch booth, guys. It's where you guys are going to get t-shirts, hats, hoodies, coffee cups, face masks, that onesie for your baby, teddy bears. There's even a little dog scarf. They're adorable. They're awesome. Get that all at huddleuppod.com. And folks, if you're financially unable to do so, we understand, guys. Inflation's crazy. Things suck right now in this world. Keep your money. We definitely appreciate all the donations and everything like that. We really do. But if you can't financially afford to do so, subscribe wherever you guys are watching the show, whether it's on YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, Twitch, Apple Podcasts, on the After Fact, Spotify, Spreaker, doesn't matter. Wherever you guys get your content, subscribe to Mile High Huddle. Like every video you guys see on all social media platforms because the likes really help us out a lot. And if you love it, share it. It's the best way. Absolute best way to help grow our community, get as many Broncos fans like yourselves in front of us and doing what we do best, which is cover your Denver Broncos, because without you guys, we couldn't do that. So with that, now, Eric, college football this weekend, Labor Day, obviously. Any big plans?
No. No, we don't really have a lot of big plans right now. It's obviously we're working on just school and the little one, and getting down to getting down to Denver for the meet and greet and everything like that. Do you have some good news on the personal front? My brother was released from the ICU, so
Good.
actually released from the hospital completely. He's at home. He's doing really well. So yeah, it's great. Everything seems to be going good. I hope everybody has a wonderful weekend. Enjoy the weekend. Don't drink and drive. Stay safe, you guys. And man, less than a week and kickoff is here and the regular season is underway. Super excited.
Yeah, cannot wait. We're going to go deep dive next week, as we typically do every single week because our Friday comes before the game. We're going to go deep dive into this Broncos versus Seattle Seahawks game next week on Friday, 6 p.m. Mountain Time, 8 p.m. Eastern. Eric, what's up?
And if you guys want us on Saturday, make sure you let Chad know. We're trying to get it on Saturday, but you guys got to let us know too. And Jeff, I'm not triggered by your Drew Law comments. It's all good, man. It was just poking fun at you, not just you. There's plenty of others in the chat as well. Like, just in good humor is all it was for.
Yeah, Jeff, we appreciate you, man. Great last minute, like at that buzzer coming in here with a super chat. We really appreciate you, man. Cody is jumping in here really fast. Eric, how is your daughter doing?
She's doing good. She got a bunch of work on her teeth done last week. She was under for 3 hours. It was just a bunch of dental work is all it was. Just, father stressing out about the daughter being put under. She's doing great. Her teeth are doing great. She had a lot of work done. And fortunately, she was almost back to normal basically the night of. So, everything's going good there. Thank you, Cody. Yeah. Appreciate that.
Yeah, it's always good to hear that the kids are doing well. My kids are doing fine. But with that, guys, we have to say goodnight to everybody here. Thank you all again for joining the Dove Valley Deep Divers podcast. You all stay safe. Take care. Have a great rest of your weekend. And always remember, as K-Hop jumps in here and says, Lance is always wrong. We'll see you guys same time, same place next week.